All right, welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Sports Management Club at IUPUI Virtual Speaker Series. Tonight on tap, we have Eric Smith, who has become a friend of mine. I'd have to say we kind of grew close inside the bubble for 2
Agreed.
months.
Very much.
He is joining us from Los Angeles. He is the public address announcer for the Los Angeles Clippers, as well as Los Angeles FC and USC. So, Eric, how are you today?
Really, really good. Thank you, Jeff, and thanks so much for lowering your standards enough to invite a guy like me to come and speak to you.
I love to hear that. I love to hear it. My standards are super high, so you're meeting that high standard. So first off, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, your background. What do you do? I know that public address is not the full-time gig usually with a team, but
Right.
it becomes a full-time gig when you do the things that maybe you do. So kind of give us a background, shed light on who Eric Smith is.
Okay, thank you. I have two lives. One, I am a high school teacher. Two, I'm a public address announcer. So my high school teaching career is in its 30th year. Done high school, middle school, history kind of a guy. So that's the one side of my life. The other side of my life is being a public address announcer. And the two actually melded initially to become something important. I was actually reading names at a graduation for one of the high schools I was working at when in the audience was the public address announcer for the Clippers at the time and for the Raiders. And he came up to me afterwards. His son had just graduated and said, "I need a backup. Would you mind? And are you available to do that?" So I said, sure. Through a couple of different steps that took place, I became his backup for the Clippers. This was back in 99, 2000. And then 2 years later, I took over as the Clippers announcer. No, I did not kick him out of it. It was a mutual agreement that I became the announcer. Started with the Clippers that same year. The Dodgers called me. I auditioned for the Dodgers. So in 1 year, I go from being a high school announcer to being the announcer for the LA Clippers and the Los Angeles Dodgers. Since that time, I have announced for LAFC. That's my newest gig. I've been doing that for 2 seasons. I've been with USC football for 6 seasons. I did the Chargers for 2 seasons. I have done various other sports. My little secret favorite is probably doing rugby sevens international. That's really a kick and wild. So that's how I got into it professionally after having been a high school guy, because that's what happens a lot of times in the high school world. They look around, everyone else steps back. I was still standing. They said, you got a fairly somewhat normal voice. You mind doing high school sports? So I did high school football, and that's what led me then. And reading names at a graduation, that's how I became the announcer in stadium announcer here in LA.
So we experienced the bubble together, but talk a little bit about your experiences in sports. So you, as a high school teacher, you've got to be bringing a whole lot of information, a whole lot of fun stuff back to your classroom, right? So as the announcer for the Clippers for LAFC, all the things that you do, what do you bring back to the classroom that you think is the most vital for a student to understand and know?
Bobbleheads. That's bar none. You bring bobbleheads into a classroom, you have them right there. What do I bring? Teaching is about communicating. And so this is teaching and PA announcing are similar in that while with PA announcing, I'm talking to a microphone in front of anywhere between 5,000 and 90,000 people, as opposed to a classroom. You still have to be an effective communicator for both. And so that I think is a little bit of a crossover. But if you're asking, what do I don't know. That's a really good question. I have to give a little more thought. Is there anything that I take from my time as a public address announcer into the classroom? I would say it's probably the opposite. As a teacher, you kind of learn what are some tricks of the trade to effectively communicate that you can possibly apply that into a public address announcing. But other than just the idea and the umbrella that you are a communicator, either of facts and ideas or plays and information, or selling soap kind of a thing. You have to be good, clear. You have to be a good reader for both. You have to be a fast reader. You have to know what you want to say and be able to think on your feet. You would know that as well as anybody, especially in the college world. Things come up, especially in a classroom, where you're going to have to, like, okay, I wasn't expecting that, so let me react to it. Sometimes that happens. I think in as a public address announcer, oftentimes there's things that are thrown at you last minute, last second. Do this. So that may also be a bit of a crossover. I don't know if that's fully answering your question, but that's kind of how I see that there's this crossover between the two.
No, that's perfect. However you relate it back, right? And with your experiences in sports, and it's multiple sports for you. So with your experiences in those multiple sports, what skills would you say that maybe you do bring back to them? Obviously speaking and things like that, but what about a bigger picture? You've witnessed a lot of things. You've been with the Clippers for a while. You've witnessed a bunch of things. And it's got to be some things that maybe you see as being vital for a college student that maybe wants to get into this world.
Yeah. So I would say that as a public address announcer, I see that I have two roles. And so I'll see if I can address that this way. One is that I am announcing the action or players or elements that are going on the field, on the court. And that's one job. The other part, which I think directly relates, especially to this class, is I'm also an arm of the marketing. In fact, just today, I had to record some things for USC football that normally would have gone out to the stadium, that they're now having to adapt to streaming. So they had to rework some of those things. And so just today, I'm reading sponsor stuff. That's one of the things that I think a lot of times public address announcers forget. They always think, oh, I'm good at announcing the action or all that. And they forget there's a very important and vital part of what we do. And that is, we are an arm of the marketing department. We need to make sure that we are effectively communicating, because we will get a lot of material to that relates to sponsors and sponsorship. So I think as it relates to with this club and the focus would be that, number one, you always have to be a really good, fast, quick reader and a really good, fast, quick editor that I have to do. Because sometimes, unfortunately, we will get copy that is not written really, really well. And so you have to be able to edit on the fly sometimes. So I would definitely encourage those of your students and those in the club who are thinking of the marketing arm of sports specifically, make sure the copy you're writing is really good copy. You have to have almost an advertising mindset, I think, that you're trying to communicate to 5,000, 15,000, 90,000 people. You want to sell stuff. That may be tickets. That might be products. That might be shirts and hats and those kind of things. Make sure your copy is good copy that you're really getting to your public address announcer, so that when it's written, it's clear and effective and motivating and all those things. Because believe me, we will get stuff that is none of that. And other times it's really, really well written. It's engaging. And that's an important part of my job, is to make sure that, look, you got merchandise, you got tickets, you have other things that, how do you think it's going to get out there to the public if not through me? Video, yes, but even then you're putting voiceover to the video. So I would definitely encourage the quality of writing of that material. It's really got to be an important focus.
So for people that maybe want to go into marketing, you obviously know a vast array of people in different marketing departments.
Yeah.
How would you say that those students, whether it be your high school students, whether it be our college students, whether it be just students in general, how would you say that they should attack wanting to get a job in marketing?
As you know, surprisingly and not surprisingly, take any job that's offered, paid or not. Start wherever you can, however you have that foot in the door, and build. You're not going to get the marketing executive position for LA, New York, Chicago right away. You are going to be the assistant for the AAA baseball team out of Poughkeepsie, and understand that that is the path that most people take. Um, Learn from it. I can tell you, when I was with the Dodgers, we had a connection with, it was at the time a single A club not too far from us. And we would kind of go to their games and watch what they were doing. And at times they were so creative in what they were doing. They had so much more freedom to do things because there wasn't like this corporate overlord watching every little thing, that they were really able to be um, really creative and fun and funny with the things that they did. And guarantee these people then, once they have that and put that on the resume, it's the step up. So I would not ever look down on any job that you're able to get, paid or internship, unfortunately. Start wherever you can, grow from it, learn from it. Even if it's a sport, like you may be thinking, why would I want to work for the US Tennis Association? I don't like tennis. If you want to start in the process, you have got to learn to like tennis. So take anything that you can and understand that that is the ladder that you are going to be stepping on over a period of time. And if you're good and if you learn from it and ask questions, you're not going to be in Poughkeepsie for the rest of your life. But that is where you are going to start. And I think there needs to be that reality check for a lot of students. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe your students at IUPU, I know that. Maybe they know, yeah, you're going to have to start in the slums, and that's just all there is to it. And you build from that. But look at it positively. Look at all the fun you can have and create the memories. And by the way, probably the people you're going to be working with are also going to be climbing that you may be asking them for a job, or they will be asking you for a job someday. So burn zero bridges, do what the boss says, and just absorb and enjoy the process.
Speaking on that networking, right?
Oh,
What do you
huge.
think? Yeah, what do you think is the most important element for students? And they're in a strange time right now. Well, obviously, we're all
Mhm.
living through it. We lived through the bubble. We're living through this weird time right now where nothing is happening, nothing is available opportunity wise. So, how would you suggest that they go out and meet people or find a way to meet people? Right, be creative in it. How would you suggest they do that?
Great question. Um,
You didn't
especially in
know you didn't
sports.
know that I was this good of an interviewer, did you?
Yeah, yeah. Or that I was that bad at answering. So how do you meet? And that is just a really great question. And I suppose the answer kind of goes back on the last one, is that you may have to be willing to um, drive a long way. You may have to be willing to do, um, in addition to, oh, here, write this copy, now go take out the trash. I mean, or it might be that you have to do some other position that will then lead you into that. As we know, nobody's career arc, is this. It's always this kind of weird shaped thing. And so I guess if um, it's a matter of, perhaps you're looking at a volunteering or interning in a position that's not directly related to what it is you want to do, but maybe it's side step cousin weirdness thing where it's like, well, this isn't exactly what I was thinking I was going to do, but I'm with an organization that I can now prove myself to, and perhaps make inroads that way. And the other thing is, right now, you're exactly right, Jeff. It's bizarro time, and right now there may not be anything right now, and that's a harsh reality, and nobody likes to hear that. Of like, well, right now the well is dry, but it's not going to stay that way. It will be filling up. There will be positions, um, and a lot of them. There's so many new avenues that are going to come out of this weirdness, because I think it's like anything else. We always think that when something happens, that, oh well, this it's going to lead to this thing, and invariably it leads to this other thing. And so um, like the idea of, you know for you and I, social media, if we were to said, you maybe want to consider being the social media coordinator 10 years ago, you would have looked at them and said, the what, to who? That's not there. So I suppose the other thing is to be very, very sharp, and especially college students are this way. They may have their ear to the ground of, well, here is what the newest thing is, and be willing to take that chance on the newest thing, but understand it may flop, but you gave it the shot. So I think you just have to be that creative. What is it that no one else is doing that you have to go out on a limb for? And I know it's not a great answer because it's really pie in the sky kind of stuff, but being the world we're in, yeah, unfortunately, um, there's not great answers right now, and I'm sorry about that.
How are you doing it? How are you staying in contact with the people that are your bosses, the people that you report to? I mean, California has been in a much different state of affairs than Indiana has. I mean,
Right,
Indiana's been fully open since the end of July. I mean, it's been,
right.
while they've been somewhat apprehensive and at times they'll close it back down a little bit, but California's been in a much different situation. So how are you doing it? I guess is a good example of what maybe these people should be doing to try to connect with the Kevin Pritchards of the world, these GMs, these assistant GMs, or people that could hire them.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my answer is not going to be what they want, but the difference is, and I say this humbly, I'm a known entity. People, I don't have to. I don't have to do the pavement pounding as much. And again, I don't really want to come across as an a-hole when I say that, but it's I've been doing this for a long time, and so I can just shoot an email to somebody, or I can just send a text to somebody saying, "Hey, it's me, and I'm here." And if I was really looking deeply for something, that I have those contacts already. So I don't know that the position I'm in, unfortunately, equates to where they are right now. But I would, um, you know, I, here's a for instance. I had a kid who is out at a little
This is what I
private
was
college.
targeting, Eric. That's
Okay,
exactly the story.
so there's this kid out at Cal Lutheran University, and he just sent me a random. I think it was a direct message. I think it was a DM, and explained just a little bit about, can I talk to you? And my first thought was, all right, what is this? You always just kind of have that. I always want to talk to up and coming, those kind of things. But this young man comes out of nowhere. He's a theater major at Cal Lu. Let me ask, is there anybody in Indiana who has heard of Cal Lu? No. But what he did and what he has done, he contacted me. He has contacted the radio guy for the Clippers, a guy named Brian Seaman. He has talked to others, and he just takes the shot at connecting. And I really do think most people who are successful, who have made it, want to pass along their information. In fact, I even said him in the interview, I'm like, you know what? You talk to a certain amount of people. People always want to talk about themselves to a point. So um, he just connected with me, and he has this little podcast, and he did it that way. So he's creating his own podcast, and I think he's going to be doing volleyball for an NAIA or D3 school, and that's how he's going to be doing the public address announcing. But he's going to do that. But he contacted me, and now he's got an in with Brian Seaman for the Clippers. It was the radio and TV. Now, excuse me, now the TV announcer, and he just took that shot. So if that's what you're thinking, I mean, here's this young man who just said, "What have I got to lose? If Eric's an idiot and won't talk to me, then okay, that's on him for being an uptight dude." But I think most people want to go, yeah, sure, I'll talk to you. What's your shot? And he's not the first. I've talked to probably 5 to 10 college kids who have just said, "What do I need to do?" And I usually give them the same advice: start here and just realize, take anything and everything that comes along. Um, and so, yeah, he did the podcast. There's that thing. It's like, create your own podcast and have people and reach out to them. And who knows? I think when I was younger, I, would have tried connecting with somebody. I think at some point, if I really had that passion, and I think most people are good people and are not going to be so egotistical as to think you're not worth my time. I just don't think that's the case. Are there? Yeah, but I really think that most of us are just going to go, sure, I can tell you my story. I can try and give you a piece of advice to the best of my ability. And so, yeah, you led me well,
No,
Dr.
that
Sherman.
was perfect. No, that's exactly what I was hoping to hear was the podcasting story, because
Yeah.
that's what a lot of students have asked me. They've said, what can I do to get into the media side, or what can I do to get into the front office? And, I've been preaching the same thing you just said for 4 years. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just been the same thing over and over. They just get tired of
Right.
hearing about it
Right.
from
No.
me. But so let's delve into our time together in the bubble. So, we spent 60 some odd days in there. I counted mine as
Yeah.
62. I don't know if yours was different, but I had 62 days.
About that. Yeah.
I call it time. I did time for 62 days there, but it was the greatest time. But what, so tell us a little bit about how your role changed in the bubble compared to the normal. I mean, obviously the fans, but
Right.
there really wasn't anything different. But I want to hear it from you, how your perspective was.
So the biggest difference, so I'm going to say two things. Number one, the difference was I wasn't the Clippers announcer. I was the NBA announcer. There were four of us. There were four of us who were NBA announcers who came from NBA teams. So the biggest difference was, in fact, for the first 8, 10, 12 games, I didn't even do a Clippers game. I did two Laker games during that time, which was very bizarre. It would be like, the Indiana announcer doing a Purdue game, or, whatever, the biggest uh, rivalry could be. But we all knew we came in there to be professionals and do what we could. The other great part was then after I did that game, the next day I was doing the Pacers. And then the game after that, I was the Miami Heat guy. And then after that, I was the Sacramento guy. So that part was really fun, is that you just kind of, it was acting in a way. It's like, today I am the Sacramento announcer and I'm going to be their guy. And they're going to tell me what their kind of, key phrases are, how they want to do things. And so you had to learn that. So that was unique in that a team like, and by the way, I don't dislike the Lakers. So I don't want to come across like, oh, the Lakers. No, good for them. Good on them. They won the championship. Nothing new. As a Clipper guy, I'm used to that. Okay. That is like, take my medicine and deal with it. But it was really fun to just kind of see the different teams, and not only were they very similar, but then there was really some uniqueness to each of the teams that was kind of fun to learn. So as an announcer part, that was interesting. Having a piece of plexiglass in front of us and not being able to reach out and say hi directly to the referees or the players or whatever it might be. That weird kind of hockey feeling to it. So that was one part. The other part that was so great was, and I'm not blowing smoke, was like, I got to meet you. I got to meet people from all over the country, that there's this commonality and yet there's great differences. And so it was so fun to be able to just talk about and understand the struggles that each were, and your wife was a teacher. And so we would talk about that, being public teachers and the issues that we were having to deal with. And so there was that connection. And then you talk to somebody from Miami and, well, what are they doing? And so that part was spectacular, just to be able to have conversations with and meet and realize there's a lot of really great people in the NBA that are, part of this. And I'm not a big, family kind of guy, but this family of people who were there in this Groundhog Day experience, because every day was the same, was really, really wonderful. That part, the human connection part of meeting everybody, really, really great.
So did you happen to see, when you were announcing, any differences in, do you get more jacked up when there's actual crowd there? Do you
Oh,
get, there was literally four walls around us, right?
right.
So without the plexiglass walls in front of us, right? But the
Yeah.
four walls and nobody physically there. So, how do you adjust to that as a PA guy who does go up and down with the crowd noise?
Weird as hell is the answer to that. It was just bizarre because it was there that I really, really, truly felt like, oh, yeah, the crowd really is important. You know that, but as with anything, until you miss it or you don't have it, that you truly appreciate it. So in that case, even though they tried everything they could to mirror and mimic that sound and all that, uh, it was dropping a needle on a record. I mean, you were really, as opposed to being at a live concert. So um, that that tangible feeling of the energy that having 16,000, 17,000 people in an arena versus uh, 25 people plus players in a box. So dramatically different, but you had to do everything you could to, what's this, you fake it till you make it kind of a thing. So you sold it. That's all. And there were times I was doing the intros as pumped up as I was if I were at home, because I just like, well, the players have to hear that. So that was the other thing. I was trying to make it more so about them than about the crowd. Obviously, there was no crowd. So as opposed to when I do announcing, it's for the crowd to influence the players. You took out the middleman, and now it's me trying to promote and pump up the players directly, and not always to the great. I think we had a losing record with the home teams, unfortunately. So
At one point, the home team was winning 59% of the games. I do know that. So
oh,
it was not much different than the regular season would be. That was
interesting.
normally at 60%, and through the seeding games, it was 59% of the time home teams were winning.
Good to
Believe it or
know.
not. So it was holding, but I don't know how much influence. I don't know what in the world
Yeah,
influenced that down there,
and
right?
and actually, I take that back. I think we did end up having our team, our D, because they separate as A, B, C, and D. I think our D team, we were over 500, but I don't know by much. And that's a humbling thing. I was like, oh, we're gonna do our best. And it's like, hmm. And sometimes it was also a matchup when you had the eighth seed and the one seed playing. You're only going to do, you can only put so much lipstick on that pig. So, things were going to happen.
We did our best with those 1-8, 8-9 games, right?
Yeah,
Or
yes,
the
we did.
Washington Wizards.
Oh gosh. Although we
Anything that
were,
involved the Wizards.
yeah, that was tough. Although I did announce 4 Suns games, and they were the only undefeated team. So I do take pride in that. And they were fun to watch. That's the other funny thing. It's like, oh, you're gonna go watch the Lakers versus? No, I can go watch Phoenix. They're playing out of their minds right now. So that was a lot of fun to watch them.
I don't remember. Did you do the Denver Utah 50-50 game with us? Jamal
Yes,
and you did
yes.
Murray, and that's what I thought. I thought that was you
Oh,
with us. That was a
such an
fun game.
exciting game. Oh, those two guys were playing. That was, I don't do the video games, but to me, my understanding, that was like a video game because they could not miss. So I don't know if they were hitting the square, the triangle, the circle, whatever it is on I don't get it. Sorry, I'm out of the loop on that. Whatever they were doing, these guys were out of their minds in that game. They couldn't miss.
So you said it was Groundhog Day. So let's shift a minute from your duties there to, not a lot of people are talking about the bubble, and because
Mm,
frankly there were not a lot of people there.
right.
So you were one of the select, just like myself. We were one of the select people, 100 total people for the better part of 60 days, and then it was down to what 18 or something like that for the
Yeah, I
last
think
two
so.
rounds. Um, Talk about the daily routine, the day to day. How did you entertain yourself? How did you find ways to make your day semi normal?
Great question. I read more than I have read in a long time, so I'm kind of yay me. Do you think as a teacher, I never get a chance to read really, except because you're always doing stuff. So to read for enjoyment and all that, I did do some more reading, and swimming. I took up swimming, which I was not a swimmer prior to that. So I really got into swimming and that kind of thing. Our schedule was so bizarre. It, I, I never went to bed before 2 a.m. It was just weird.
I
I
keep
couldn't.
telling people that same thing, that we never got to bed, but it was somewhere between 2 and 4 every night.
Yeah. And it's not like, going crazy. We weren't out partying. It was like I was still on I could not shake West Coast time for some reason. I don't know why, but I couldn't. Um, So, and then there were times I had to set my alarm because we were required to do this little check-in thing by 11 a.m. to say, I feel healthy. I've taken my temperature. I've done all that. There were times I knew that I had to set my alarm for like 10:55 so I could stumble over, take my temperature, and get that in before 11. Um, and I had zero responsibility. I go from, I'm in my household are three generations, my wife and I, my daughter and our grandson. So, and we're kind of helping with those things. So I go from having responsibility to having zero responsibility other than get yourself to the arena on time and be ready to go. Other than that, nothing. And so I would tell my wife, we would be doing the Zoom or calling, just, what are you doing today? I'm like, I'm going to go swim for a while. Then I'm going to go take a bike ride. And then I'm going to eat. And then I'm going to read some more, watch some TV. And she's like ready to hang up, and she's like, you're an idiot. How dare you? But I'm like, yeah, all of a sudden, am I assuming that maybe the college guy, I kind of felt like a college kid in a way. It's kind of like, I just got to get myself to English class by this time. And other than that, you got no responsibilities. They fed us. Our room was clean 3 times a week. So that part was spectacular. And it was a rude awakening coming back home. It's kind of like, here's the list of honeydews that you didn't do while you were gone there, Sluggo. So that part was really good. And I always try to downplay it a little bit with my wife. Like, I got to go to this Zoom meeting. And then for the last couple of weeks, I did have Zoom classes. But come on, no, it was cake. It was really easy. So for that part was really nice. Really,
Did you enjoy the food?
Not at first. No, no. The quality of food at the beginning was bad. It was I think I said it was really average airplane food. And by the way, if you love chicken, get the chicken because it was there for every meal. But I think they got better or my standards lowered. I'm not sure which, or maybe a little of both. But like they had good like vegan meals and stuff, so they were really kind of upping their game towards the end, and especially when the families came in, really nice. We're like, hey, that's great, but why didn't you do that for us? So we knew where we stood on the hierarchy. But yeah, the food was, you know what? I didn't have to prepare it. I didn't have to clean a dish.
So how was your first trip to the grocery store after getting back? Did you fill your bag and then decide to walk out like we did every day?
Sir, where sir? So the two things that, number one, when we left, because we were in the van together when we left, and you did the driving and I did the flying. So when we were at the airport, I was very conscious of being like, don't be weird. But in my mind, I'm like, none of you have been tested for 60 some odd straight days and been in the bubble. You're all diseased. So it was like this freak out of like, I wanted to be in the bubble, but like boy in the bubble kind of a thing. But I really tried to just be normal and not freak out. And then, yeah, when you went to the store, and then the first time I cooked, because I do the cooking at our house. It was really funny. My daughter says, we haven't had a home cooked meal since you left. So I'm like, oh, sorry. So getting back into cooking and doing all that. Yeah, going to the store and walking up and down the aisles and just the routine after 3 months is, yeah.
It changed things for me a little bit. I will say that. I was
Yeah.
expecting to have better, food prepared for me when I arrived and that sort of stuff. And it didn't quite work out that way. I
No,
had to
not so
actually start
much.
preparing it myself. But yeah, I'm with you with the airport thing because I wiped down my Instacart with a half a package of wipes. And then I proceeded to go through the airport because I had to go to the other side of where he dropped me off. I never
That's
told you
right.
that. I had to go to the other side and then I got my car and I did use an entire package of wipes on the inside of the car.
Gosh. Yeah.
Why? Because I was a little nervous, a little bit.
Right. Yeah. You do become, and here's the thing. It was after being home for just, I think it was 10 days, I got a really severe head cold because I think my defenses had just left. So my grandson, I think, came home and gave me that lovingly. So, I mean, and it hit me just knocked me out for like 3 days. And my first thought was, oh shoot, here I've tried all this, and do I have did I get corona? It wasn't. It was just a head cold. And because I did not have any of the other symptoms that were with it, so it was just, good.
The other 30 symptoms.
Right. Yeah. This was just, and you forget, it's like, oh no, there's still head colds out there, and there's still other viruses that are floating around in our society and being shared. So it's not just the one, but I did get the head cold.
Now, don't forget to drop your questions in the chat for Eric. Good guy coming on here today for us. Kyle, I'm going to hand it off to you and let you take the questions that have already been posed to my man over here.
Well, first, I need to apologize to everybody for Dr. Sherman and I being late. Yeah, we were playing Rocket League, so
we botched that one. Our bad. We thought it was 6 o'clock. It was our fault. We will take full responsibility.
Somebody actually came into my Twitch chat and was like, "Is this speaker series still going on at 5?" And my eyeballs got really big, and and then we both dipped. So I apologize for that. And I did read your email, and he's like, "Registered and waiting." So yeah,
I just want to make sure I didn't screw up, which would normally be the case.
Nope, we are the ones who screwed up on that, so we take full responsibility for that. So anyway, obviously you announced for different teams. So do you have any like different techniques for announcing different sports, and if so, like what are they?
Good question. Yes. Each sport kind of has its own little nuances. When I did baseball, so I did Dodgers for 14 years. Very staid, just give me the intro. When the players are coming up, you can pump them up a little bit, but they have music that comes up, so you can do a little of that. But for the most part, you're operating at like, a 5, a 4.5. With football, you're kind of pumping it up a little bit more, and there's just a few little times like, third down. If anybody ever listens on TV, for some reason, all of college and pro sports have decided that third down is the time to absolutely lose your stuff and just go bonkers. I don't know why, but that's the thing. So I remember that, yes, with third down, you pump it up. But other than that, with football, you're kind of just you're pumping it up, but you're not really going until there's a touchdown. Basketball, it's all the time. It's very high energy. There's always action. Whenever there's a slam dunk or a big 3-pointer, there's always these opportunities. So basketball, now you're up at your 8, 9, and 10. That's when you're really ramping it up. So I would say that it's the delivery, knowing when to do it. Because with football, if you're just always, somebody carries the ball for half a yard and you're just going nuts, half a yard, people are going to go like, geez, pal, take it easy. The guy got walloped after half a yard. Take it easy. But so you really have to also read the situation, time and score, that kind of thing, where you can do that, and knowing that. So a lot of times you will see, and even within the NBA, you're going to find that there's different. The Laker announcer, Lawrence Tanter, he's always at about a 2 or a 3. He's just always this mellow guy. But then you get to Miami, and they're just nuts all the time. So part of it is, once again, you're giving the information. That is part of your job, is to describe the information, the detail that's going on. And then, you're also the crowd guy. You're also the marketing guy. So knowing that, and each team will kind of let you know what they want.
How about I unmute myself? So in being a good public address announcer, is it more so in your voice, charisma, or experience? And also, what's the best way to calm nerves while announcing in front of a couple thousand people?
What are the three? Is it your
voice, charisma, and experience?
I don't have any charisma, so it's not that. So I would say it's your voice, understanding what's going on is also important. Again, kind of like what I said, where you have to feel the room and understand. And yeah, you do have a personality. You have to come in and be yourself and be what you want to put onto the game. And again, you'll be told by the organization, either one, get in, get out, give us the information, or we need you to pump the crowd, be that kind of guy. So there is, I would say, personality more so than charisma. I always try, and over the many years I've been doing this, I try and find little phrases that I think I can maybe adopt and adapt and get the crowd into. Um, I like to do the thing where if in basketball, the guy gets fouled, makes the shot. As soon as he goes to the line, Lou Williams at the line looking to complete, and then I pause, the 3-point play, and you kind of get the crowd into it. So you're looking to get crowd involvement, especially in basketball, a little bit in football, with the third down stuff. Baseball, you're just give them the information. So I would say some personality, a little bit of charisma, I suppose is another way of putting that. And again, I don't want to downplay the part that in addition to being just here's the action on the field court, how are you at reading a commercial? You got to have a little bit of an actor kind of commercial read kind of guy too. And, there's plenty of guys who are great at calling the action, but suck at doing the commercial part. And your marketing team is not going to like that. And they'll bring in outside people to read the commercials. So don't forget, you are also there, as we say, you're there to sell soap. So don't forget that part of it and learning how to read commercial reads.
So then in soccer, obviously there's not much announcing during the game and there's no like time. So what do you do in your free time?
So great question. Yeah, soccer is by far the easiest gig there is. A lot of lineups, and then the only thing you're announcing are yellow cards, goals. That's it. Yellow cards and goals. And then at halftime the score. So for LAFC, when there were fans, they are by far, without a doubt, there is a big gap to second, the most rabid fans there are. They are the best fans. They really and truly are. I was shocked. So I'm watching the game. I really am. The match. It's not a game. It's a match. I'm watching the action on the pitch. So I'm watching the sides on the pitch in the match. See that? That's a guy who understands his PA right there. So what am I doing? I'm literally watching the match. And then when there's a goal or substitution or stuff like that, then you jump on the mic. But I'm usually standing up, either binoculars or just watching the game. And it is a lot of fun to watch soccer in person. It really is. And I would not have said that a few years ago.
Yeah.
I think Kyle agrees with me.
Well, I interned for a soccer team and I did not like soccer beforehand. And now I watch soccer every weekend. So
it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
In person, it is spectacular.
Yeah. So what's it like announcing like a rivalry game, like when Notre Dame comes to town for USC?
The best. It is. It is the best. When for USC football, Notre Dame is it's two snooty schools, really. I mean, let's be honest. Notre Dame and the SC are two snooty schools, and so you have the snooty fans. The UCLA SC is the crosstown. It's 5 miles or 8 miles, whatever they are apart. That game has just a whole different feel than the Notre Dame game. The Clippers and Lakers, for the longest time, there were always more Laker fans than there were Clipper fans, because Clipper fans would sell their tickets to the Laker fans who couldn't make it to the Laker games. So you almost had a 50-50 crowd there, and that sucked. But over the last few years, that's kind of changed. It's now more 70-30. You're always going to, we are the redheaded stepchild of LA sports. We get it. LAFC and the LA Galaxy, that is really the one part that's really unique about LA is every team has an in-city rival, which is very unique. You don't have to go across the state border or out, within the state, 100 miles. You have somebody that's a rival in the city, and that really makes it very unique. And so doing those games, it is spectacular because the feel of the crowd is palpable.
So then, obviously, you announced all these games. So, how hard do foreign names make your job? And how long does it take you to learn pronunciations on more difficult names? And this could use the example of Giannis.
Yep, there you go. He stops at Giannis. Notice, Eric. He
Yeah.
stopped at Giannis.
I'm not going
Giannis,
to butcher it.
you know what? Yeah, Giannis Antetokounmpo has really that flows. There, you're absolutely right. The great part about the NBA is the Eastern European names that you get. Um, with baseball, sometimes you get some of the Latin American countries names. Um, Football, you get the Polynesian names because they are your linemen. Those are spectacular. Like when you look at the new quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, at no point is there an N in his name, but he is Tagovailoa. But there's no N in Tong. It's Tog. You know, you look it's Tog, but no, that they always add the N sound to the G, so it's Tagovailoa, and it comes with time, botching things. And here is one thing that I think about a lot. Number one, the PR people are vital. So if anybody here is thinking of going into the public relations part, and you're going to be with the teams, always, always, always stop in and say hi to the public address announcer and go over the names every single time. Some teams are better than others. I can tell you in the NBA, I will be more than happy to give props to the Golden State Warriors. Their PR guy is spectacular. He makes sure it is great. The Pacers actually have a pretty good guy who has come in and helped. And then there are others, you're like, anywhere, it is just nowhere to be found. And you have these names and you're like, really? And that's when you go to the announcers for the team and say, how do you say the name? That's the other great way to do it, is go to the radio guys. So yes, announcing those names, at times they're beautiful and rhythmic and lovely, like an Antetokounmpo, a Tagovailoa, fantastic. But then you get some that are, you know, XRVXKL, and you're like, what? They're like, oh no, that's Schreckle. You know, like, no, it's not. That is not Schreckle. That is Zwickel. You're BSing me. So yeah, at times, and there have been times where I've, like half of the game has gone through, and then eventually the PR guy goes, oh no, you're putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable there. It's supposed to be this. I'm like, well, where were you an hour ago? That would have been helpful. Thank you. You know what? Here's an example. Pat Connaughton. I was always saying Pat Connaughton. No one ever told me. I said Connaughton because I hadn't watched him at Notre Dame. I didn't know who he was. And I look at that and I go, well, to me, that looks like Connaughton because there's two N's. And so I'm trying to go through, of course, the English language is bonkers. And about, middle of the second quarter, he goes, it's Connaughton. Thanks. Sorry, Pat. So, yeah.
He got Antetokounmpo, but he didn't get
Antetokounmpo, no problem. But, yeah, all three of the Antetokounmpos, by the way. So,
obviously, obviously you prepare with those names before games. So what else goes into your preparation for a game or even a season?
So here's something that I always like to emphasize, that when I announce their names, they hear their names every night. And this now goes to the marketing side. A lot of times you will have, for baseball, a first pitch, or you'll have somebody shooting free throws, or they're in a contest or something like that. And this is just, Joe and Jill coming out of the crowd. I always, always, always make sure that whoever the marketing person, the PR, whoever, come tell me and make sure I have their name correct. Because to me, this is the time they're going to hear their name in front of thousands of people. I don't want to screw that one up. To me, that's almost more important, to make sure that Jill Swanson is, obviously Jill Swanson's not a problem, but when you get some name, you're like, I want some help with this. I want to make sure I'm saying their names correctly. So as far as preparation, a lot of times once you're into the season, it's very repetitious. You'll have a lot of the same things. Again, new names will come in, but other than that, there's a lot of repetition that goes in each game, each match. But I read through a script. I make sure the writing is good. If there is a new, if we're highlighting some organization, you always want to prepare for that and pre-read. So real quick, let me tell you a story. So the Dodgers used to do a thing called Think Blue Week. And that was it was fundraising that they did for, Children's Hospital in Los Angeles. And they were raising money for kids with cancer. Okay. So one of the things I always had to prepare for was I had to read through, because invariably there would be some kids there who were recovering from the most heinous things. And I can just remember it, and it took me years to do away. So I would read through this, and this thing was, here's, a 6-year-old girl who's fought cancer twice, and just some of the most heart-wrenching things. And the hard part initially for me was getting through it without crying. It's, you read these stories of little children with cancer, and if that doesn't screw with your head, something's wrong with you. And so I had to make sure that I practiced it 5, 6, 10 times, so that I knew that when I came to the reading, I had hardened myself just enough to not like start weeping as I'm reading about this. And that sounds like a really weird thing to talk about, but it's like, this is, kids overcoming cancer. Those are the ones that were always, it's like your heart filled with like, and here's this 9-year-old kid who's fought cancer twice, and now they're in remission. And, the crowd is standing, and you're just like, and there's this lump in your throat the size of a tennis ball, and you're still having to read about, what's going on. Those were brutal. I hated that week, but I loved that week. I don't know if that makes sense. It's like, this is so important, but there was so many times I'd be like, and let's hear it for Bobby and continue the good fight. Crowd, I would just take off my headset and I would just start crying. You're like, this is terrible. But or here's a family and they've lost a kid, but they're there to do. And you're like, oh my God, really? I got to read this? That is the hardest by far. Just to really bring down the mood in the room. Thanks. I'm glad to do that. So.
So Pac-12 football is coming back this week. So is your script or anything going to change with an empty stadium?
Yeah. I have no. I was mentioning I recorded like 5 things already. I have no ads whatsoever to read. There is absolutely. I'm not selling anything. No tickets. None of that. So. It will be interesting. I have had a couple LAFC. I've had now a stadium that's 20,000, not huge, but now I'm going to be going into an 85,000 seat arena stadium. Nobody. They're not even allowing family there. So yeah, that is going to be, and it's going to echo like crazy. Yeah. So I kind of wish I could come back next week and tell you how it went. It's going to be weird. Yeah, but I'm still going to announce the same things.
Are they home this weekend?
Yeah, we open up against Arizona State. Now, what says football better than 9 a.m. Saturday morning for a national football game? Fantastic. So we'll be there about 6:30 in the morning getting ready because I don't know, it's dumb, but it's the national game.
You don't have any reason as to why the Pac-12 has decided to play a 9 a.m. game?
I'll tell you why, because the network says so. And when the network says, and I think I think it's Fox. I think it's their kickoff game. So for you guys, it will be a lovely 11:30 game, and then yeah, 9 a.m.
Do you experience that a lot, Eric? Do you experience a lot of TV controlling things? Because as a PR guy back in the day, TV controlled everything for me.
Networks control everything. Yeah. ESPN with basketball, it's TNT and ESPN. They control. Yes, TV rules. Absolutely, TV rules.
So we have some sports analytics people here, and one student has asked, has live sports betting made its way into your job? And if not, has there been any discussions about how it may be worked in?
It has worked in that I am not allowed to bet on sports. I am forbidden I cannot bet on NBA. I cannot, when I was with the Chargers, I couldn't bet on the NFL. So I am not allowed to bet. And if caught, that's very bad. So I do not do sports books. So in a way, yes, it has come in that I am not allowed to do any kind of betting or wagering on the sport that I announce at all. As far as like in the announcing or in the games, or hey, that's 12 points for those of you who have so-and-so. So far, no, that has not, but I don't see. I know that they actually do have some graphics, especially in the NFL, for like points that would be brought in. So if this person's on your fantasy team, I know they do actually have a a fantasy like graphic and screen that comes up, and like the running back and the quarterback, and that was this many points. So it has made its way into graphics, but not directly to me. Yeah, that would be crazy. That's a touchdown and 6 points if you have them on your team. So
do you think that with the way Golden State built their new arena, which is going to be, I guess, a mecca for sports betting in that area, do you think that that's going to come in to play at all for you in your job? I mean, do you think it's going to, I guess, fold its way in somehow, that it's going to become that important?
sure. Yes, I think at some point.
I can tell you don't want it to.
No. I'm not that I'm a purist or anything, but no, I don't. Let's be honest. It is an entertainment business, and so sure, why would it not? I think eventually there will be some thing that has to come in, but like to me, I want to know what's going on in Las Vegas with the hockey and football. How's that working? Are they putting up odds and stuff on the scoreboard in Vegas, and for the Raiders or for the Knights? I don't know, but if there is and I say this both, if it's going to relate to the bottom line positively for the sport, yeah, it's going to creep its way in. How can it not? I don't see how it won't eventually. Yeah.
Is there a sport at all that you have not done that you would maybe want to do, or be recruited to do, or be willing to do?
The only one I have never done is hockey. I have never done a hockey game. And if they came knocking, who am I to say no? Yeah, at one point I did have 4 of LA's teams, so why not 5? Why not? So yeah, at this point, hockey seems similar in the announcing kind of soccer, in that you have this action, but a lot of times until there's penalties or goals, I don't think they do a ton of announcing. Now talk about fun with names. Yeah. Yes. Give me some of those hockey names. That was.
So with all that you do, right, with all these sports and all the things that you've done, what do you see? What direction do you see? Do you see yourself doing freelance work? Have you done freelance work? Do you do gigs for voiceovers, things like that? And if so, where could my students maybe have heard you before?
I have not done any advertising in a long time. That's a really very difficult field to get into, and you have to be willing to, if you're going to be a voiceover artist, that has to be your job, because you have to go on auditions, or you have to put together your reel, and that needs to be. So maybe when I retire from teaching, I might consider doing that. I have had an agent. I have done some stuff. Local banks and things like that were actually connections through some of the sports teams where they were the major corporate sponsor. So they said, hey, why don't you do some of the ads that way? But no, I have not done a national ad. That'd be great, because those pay really spectacular. The only thing I ever did nationally was Jimmy Kimmel's group called me many years ago when the famous fight took place between the Pistons and Pacers. Yes, I think so. So they actually called me, and I did a fake play-by-play for the fight, and that it was really funny, is that I got paid, I got scale, and then the show repeated, and like a month or 2 later, I got like this check. It was like, because it was replay. I'm like, hey, cool. Wow, that's neat. So that's the only national thing I've ever done that was through Jimmy Kimmel, and that was, how many years ago. But I do like to keep up kind of the chops with that. But more and more companies want known entities to be the voice. So just, a schmuck like me, I'm going to be losing out to George Clooney, and I'm going to be losing out to these other, more well-known names. Unless they have no budget, then I'm your guy. So,
well, you just wait. You're a known entity, so you just wait.
So, I mean, I have a question about that. I mean, do you think it would be different if you were in like, say, Indianapolis, where there's not a whole bunch of celebrities? Like you are in LA where, all the celebrities are. So do you think if you were here, would they reach out to you to do those entities?
Um, no, and again, it's very interesting. I should mention I did one other thing. It was karaoke in cars with the British late night guy. God, the hefty guy. Quick, he's gonna look it up. The late night. Anyways, he did the karaoke. The people joined him in the car and they did karaoke. Well, they did one with LeBron James, and so they had this whole setup. And I actually did that, which I really thought was funny. Is that I'm the announcer for this thing? Okay, what is it, Kyle? What's his name?
Corden.
Corden. James Corden. That's
yeah.
it. So I did the thing with James Corden, and it's LeBron James then. So here I am thinking, okay, I'm doing this thing. This is it's going to get a little play. It's a YouTube thing, but he'll mention it on his show, and maybe I'll get a little something out of that. Nothing. So it's so far it has not translated into, and I really haven't pursued it as much as I probably should. I think if I gave it the all and said, okay, I'm going to just put aside teaching and this is going to, I think I could probably eke out a living, but at my age, I'm not willing to bungee jump that.
Tim Sinclair, the reason why I asked was Tim Sinclair does some voiceover stuff, but he's a voiceover artist. So
he does. And Tim has a great voice and it's a very unique, and it's funny is that his voice is not like in my timbre. It's a little higher timbre, but here's a guy now who's on Pacers and he does Illinois football, and now he's doing the Bears and soccer. And he's kind of the Midwest. We were kind of sharing stories, and we connected and actually we'll text each other on a semi-regular basis. And he's got this very down home kind of friendly that a lot of people like, and he's done a great job of marketing himself and getting out there. That is his calling and his going. And so,
he's a far cry from Michael Grady, who is our previous public address announcer who works for the Yes Network now in Brooklyn. So he went over to be with the Brooklyn Nets and the Yes Network. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Well,
he was a very deep booming voice. Like I can't even get as low as Grady. I mean, he was wow. I mean, it was an octave below you.
Oh yeah.
He was crazy good.
Yeah. Well, good for him. Yeah. But Tim he's on the path. He is on the path.
So last question before I hand you back over to Dr. Sherman for his famous question. Do you have a favorite memory or experience that's stood out to you while doing public address announcing?
Yeah. Several. A couple of things that are back in 2001, the President Bush was getting on. He was about to address the nation, and it was just prior to one of our games, and people were in the stands, and they kind of held up the game a little bit, and they came to me there in the stadium and said, President Bush is about to address the nation. We need you to introduce him. And so, it was just in there, and it was basically when he said, we'll be heading into war, basically is what he was saying. And to do that at that moment, ladies and gentlemen, please draw your attention. The President of the United States is about to address and blah, 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 give the little write-up, and then here he makes this, we're going to war kind of a thing. That sticks out, and that was very early on in my career, just that moment to be part of that. Certainly to be part of the bubble, even though that was the weirdest thing, it's so unique and different. So being in the bubble, and are there other? Yeah, Clayton Kershaw had a no-hitter for the Dodgers for the first time in 20 some odd years, and so announcing that game a no-hitter is kind of a cool thing because that had not happened in such a long time. So those are three things that kind of, if I was just to pick, and there's dozens more, but I won't bore you with those.
Well, I guess it's my turn now, so I get to ask you what Kyle has dubbed my famous question, and I don't think it's as famous as what he's saying. It shouldn't make you nervous, but
Okay.
I always allow my guests to provide a parting shot, a parting take, a tip, trick, advice, anything, wisdom of any kind that you can impart to what amounts to 12 students in the room, right? So any type of wisdom you may have that would help them get internships, jobs, connections, whatever, I give you the floor.
Hmm. I think the first thing is always have a long lens. Um, Too much changes on a short-term basis that we can be affected by the highs, the lows, the good, the bad on a day-to-day basis, looking for career, relationships, whatever it might be. The day-to-day struggles are, are too easily influential, and especially I think at that age of early 20s where everything seems far more dramatic. So my first piece of wisdom would be always have a long lens. Don't let today affect so much because it won't in the big picture. I can think of very few single days that are that dramatic that make our really huge turning points in life. So I always have tried to, and as I get older more and more, just that idea of having a long lens. Look further down, especially as we look. I mean, you could take of what's going on right now in our nation's history. So easy to be caught up in the right now, to be, gosh, there's the phrase being, the prisoner of the immediate, um, is very hard to shake. So I think as a student, you think, oh, I'm 22, I'm 23, 24 years old. What am I going to do with my life? What's my career? And, as you get a little older, you look back and go, 23 is a baby. You don't want to hear that. It's the oldest you've ever been, but it means so little. Just have that long lens. Don't be a prisoner of the immediate right now affect you more than it should. Number two, always surround yourself with quality people. There's plenty of talented people in the world, but more important in my mind than talent are quality people. So always surround yourself with quality people. The more you have in your surrounding sphere of quality people, the better your life is going to be, the better you will have in decision making, the better you will have just in life. I think it's so easy to be drawn to talent. It's easy to be drawn to flair. It's in those kind of things. But if you surround yourself with quality people and be willing, by the way, and this is hard, to discard people that don't make you better. If you're surrounded by people, you say, wow, they're so talented and all these things, but you look and go, but they're turds. Say goodbye. They're not there to improve your life. So I think those are, I think if I could simplify, that would be it. The longer lens with the quality of people around you, things are going to be all right. You will be on a path that you want to go to, and take a risk. It's okay to take a risk. And if you fall flat, who cares? Take the risk, because those quality people around you will lift you up when you've taken that risk. And if you fail, when you fail, and then you don't let that burden you so much because you have that long lens, I think you'll be fine. You really will be fine.
That might be some of the best advice we've heard yet, Kyle. What do you think?
For sure.
Have a long lens and surround yourself with good quality people. I like it. I like it. Thank you, Eric, and to the crowd for being here tonight. We apologize again for being late. That was all completely on us, but we're glad to have you. I'm glad you joined us. I am so thrilled to have you, just to be able to come on after 60 days of, growing somewhat close, I guess.
Yeah. No,
for being across the country.
You know what? I'm honored. I really am. I'm humbled that you would actually think to even have a geese like me come on and yammer away. I'm honored. I truly am honored. And if any of your students want to talk to me directly, or you can certainly pass along that information to them, I'll be glad to, because I try not to be a jerk in life.
You're one of the good quality people we should surround ourselves with. So I like that. So now you're not part of the circle, the Sherman Circle. So I wanted to pub next week. We've got Chris Panyard coming on next week. He's the Senior Director of Operations for the 2022 Indy College Football Playoff Incorporated. He'll join us for SMC Virtual Speaker Series. It'll be next Wednesday at 5:00. Get registered for that, because that's a pretty big one to have on for us. Chris used to be with the Indiana Sports Corporation and is now moved over to the College Football Playoff. So he's running the show for the big game. Yeah, for the big game coming to Lucas Oil Stadium. So thank you, everybody, for attending tonight. Eric, thank you again.
Thank you.
I owe you many thank yous, and we'll have to talk very soon. And
Please.
Thank you again for attending.
Thank you. All the best.